Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to go through my top 7 tips for the decision making section of the UCAT, and make sure to stick to the end to see my best tip for decision making. I'm Melvin from MedicMind, a second year medical student from Monash University, and if you're interested in the UCAT, medicine and getting into medical school, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the MedicMind YouTube channel. Decision making is the newest section of the UCAT. It was brought in as a replacement to the similarly named decision analysis. It was first trialled in the UK in 2016 and has then contributed towards a score since 2017. Because it's slightly newer, you might find less resources online for this section. Even before the change, many students find this area one of the most challenging in the test. And this video aims to provide you with 7 key tips for overcoming this challenge and acing this section for UCAT success. Tip number 1, decision-making technique is key. On the face of it, decision-making questions can seem incredibly complex, but by systematically applying technique to each question, you can break them down into much more manageable questions. For example, let's start with the syllogism questions. They may just seem like a jumble of nonsensical words, but by drawing a Venn diagram, you can turn a random sentence into a clear and easy to follow diagram. And then you can use this to confidently select the correct answer. Once you've learned the required techniques and spent time practicing them, this section can be turned from one of the hardest sections to one of the most manageable. This section is not like quantitative reasoning, where it can be managed with strong, basic mathematical ability. While some students can manage without spending time learning theory, if you don't know what you're doing in this section, it could be incredibly challenging. So good technique can make all the difference. Tip number 2 is to balance different decision-making question types. There are 6 different question types in this UCAT section. Therefore, it is incredibly important that you have spent time practicing each type. Each question type has different techniques and timing tips linked to them, and you need to have spent time on each one to learn these. The first question type is syllogisms, where you're given 2 or more statements and have to use logical reasoning to decide what conclusions follow. The next question type is Venn diagrams, where you may be presented with a set of statements or a set of different Venn diagrams as possible response options. Next is probability reasoning, where you're required to select the best possible response for a question related to probability. Next is logical puzzles, where you're given a series of statements and facts and need to infer information from this. After that is interpreting information, where you're required to find which conclusion best follows an argument. And lastly is recognizing assumptions, where you're required to test your ability to evaluate how strong an argument is in support or against a solution to a particular problem. This also means that there will be no surprises on test day, and that if you find a particular question type you struggle with, you can dedicate time to practicing it. It may even be the case that you could benefit from external help, in which case our one-to-one tutors can give you that help that can be tailored to your exact needs. Tip number 3 is to make note of your mistakes. When practicing, make sure to write a list of all the different question types. Not only will this allow you to make sure you have done at least one of each, but as you go through, make a tally when you get a certain question wrong. For a section with so many subtopics, this is a useful way to structure your revision, allowing you to focus on your weakest areas. Remember not to neglect the questions you find particularly hard. Everyone has a certain type they struggle with, but this does not mean you should avoid them. This technique is a good one to apply to all sections of the UCAT, as they all have different question types with them, so it can help you keep on track. Tip number 4 is to practice Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are one of the most important parts of decision making, as they are key for both the syllogism and the Venn diagram questions. Practicing drawing them will get you used to how they work, and how to apply them in these 2 different question types. Then, when it comes to test day, even though it might require more time initially, it will mean that you can answer the 5 statements quickly and accurately. But be sure to keep an eye on the clock when you practice. You need to have a rough idea on how long it's taking you as to not run out of time. Tip number 5 is to ensure to be strict with timing. Decision making requires you to move through the questions at a rate above 1 question per minute. This may seem generous compared to other sections, but it's very easy to fall in the trap of getting caught up in a question. Ultimately, some of the questions are quite interesting, and trying to figure your way through can be quite satisfying. But be careful, this can result in you wasting too much time on one question and may prevent you from finishing. In fact, some of the logical puzzles are unsolvable on purpose. This has been done on purpose to penalize students who spend longer trying to solve the complete puzzle, even after they've worked out the correct answer to the statement. So, overall, it's critical to be strict with yourself during this section. Tip number 6 for decision making are the spatial equations. Spatial equations are another question type that can be simplified easily. If you give each shape a letter, it will allow you to work out and solve this question type much more efficiently. You can then utilize the time saved on this question on some of the more complex consuming ones. Tip number 7 is try not to overflag. While it is important not to get caught up on questions and to move on when you get stuck, it's also important not to leave any questions unanswered when you flag them. Remember that the UCAT is not negatively marked, so that there's no harm in guessing if you don't know the answer. With decision making, it is one scenario per question, unlike verbal reasoning, for example, where a set of multiple questions will all relate to the same passage. Therefore, it's quite difficult to come back at the end and reaccustom yourself with the question. So, try to answer the question once and for all while you're actually doing it. Without practice and technique, decision making can be one of the hardest and most confusing sections of the UCAT. It therefore benefits most from practice. If it's an area that you're particularly struggling with, a personal tutor could make a massive impact on your performance. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you learn a thing or two about decision making in the UCAT. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Make sure to like the video and share this with your friends. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Medic Mind YouTube channel to never miss a video.